This is my January 2022 book haul. This is my first book haul of the year, my dynamic January 2022 book haul. I'll tell you what I want, what I really want. I'll show you what I got, what I really got. I've got self-published, science fiction, not science fiction, fantasy, cozy sweatshirt. I'm Michael Leverts, and this is Fit to be Read. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Michael Leverts. This is Fit to be Read. Today I'm doing my January 2022 book haul, my first book haul of the year. These are books that I got in December and January. Some of these I've gotten for the holidays, some were gifts, some are things I've been wanting to get for a while and I just haven't talked about on the channel. The first book in this haul is going to be Dark Theory by Wick Welker. This is a new release. This is self-published and indie read by Wick Welker. This is set in a feudal wasteland. The main character, a robot who recently has awakened, is on a mission to find his creator. The reason for the robot's existence seems to be a major part of the plot, as is the valuable and mysterious ore, dark matter. Stakes are high as stars are disappearing from the skies, and the robot's quest may be the key to saving the cosmos. So this book is on my haul because it was sent to me by Wick Welker, who was the author. This is my second copy of the book. I actually have a pre-published version as well because I was hoping to get it to it sooner, and I don't think Wick had the hard copy available yet. I reviewed Refraction last year, which was one of his new release, again, self-published indie titles. It was a really great read, so I've really been looking forward to getting to this one. Now, take a look. This is a real chunker, and it's going to take me a little while to read, but I'm really excited to get to it. Refraction was a really great space opera story set over 3 different timelines. Dark Theory by Wick Welker. Next in the haul is The Diamond Age by Neal Stephenson. This was published in 1995. It won the Hugo Award, and it's also number 40 on my top 150 science fiction reads video, which is linked in the description if you haven't watched it already. Diamond Age is set near future. It's got nanotech, which has revolutionized the world. This world is definitely cyberpunk or post-cyberpunk. There's a great coming-of-age element in the book with Nell, a really well-written character whose story starts when she's just 4 years old. As with the rest of Stephenson's work, you can expect amazing tech, philosophical writing, and gritty and edgy cyberpunk. So this is on my list because one of my 2022 goals, which you can see in my recent 2022 goals video, is to read at least 2 novels this year by each of my top 7 favorite authors. I had that goal in 2021 and did not have Stephenson on my list then because I was doing just my top 6 favorite authors. This year's I've expanded it to my top 7, so I put Stephenson into the mix. I've already gotten through Snow Crash, and we'll have a review of that coming up soon. The Diamond Age will probably be the other Stephenson I read this year. How about some non-science fiction in this haul? The Violent Bear It Away by Flannery O'Connor, published in 1960. My understanding is that this is what is referred to as Southern Gothic literature. It centers on an orphan, Frances Marion Tarwater, who's expected to become some sort of a prophet. There's a struggle with faith situation going on here, and while I'm going in mostly blind, I do understand that there are strong Catholic overtones, good versus evil, but also moments of humor and satire. So I'm reading this because one of the channels that I watch a lot, especially for live streams, is Noah's channel, Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse, and they're doing a Flannery O-January right now, but actually this was on my radar long before this because he's talked about it on his channel quite a bit, and it just kind of struck me as something that isn't science fiction that I might try to get onto my TBR. Therefore, I have it on the book haul. It may not get into my reading this year, but the fact that it's now going to be on the shelf means that sometime in this year, next year, the year after, I will get to this book. And it's not that big, so it's probably something I can get through pretty easily, pretty quickly. If you haven't checked out Noah's channel already, look in my descriptions. I'm going to link his channel. It's a great channel, great content, and the live streams are excellent. It's a great community on BookTube, so be sure to check it out. Next on the list is The Premonition by Michael Lewis. Now, this is a pretty new release. This was published in 2021. I think this is going to make it onto my reading list this year, as I'd like to read some more nonfiction. This one might be rough as it's pandemic focused. Lewis focuses on a small group of people who had the courage to work on the COVID threat while struggling to be heard over all of the noise and politics during the first year of the pandemic. Lewis is more well known as the author of Moneyball and The Big Short. I have this book in my possession because it was one of the gifts that was sent to me by my good friend Brian Weiss, who last year sent me Dai Siji's Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress, which was a great non-science fiction read for me, which I was enticed to read because I mentioned to him how much I liked The Three-Body Problem, which was a Chinese translation, and I liked the setting of the Cultural Revolution in China, which is something I looked up after I read The Three-Body Problem because it just seemed like an interesting part of history that I knew nothing about. So he had recommended that book to me, and Brian used to work in publishing and run a publishing company, so he usually has really good ideas for me for things that he thinks I will like to read. So based on his recommendation alone, I'm going to take a look at this book. Also sent to me by Brian, and perhaps a bit of a nudge into fantasy, I have Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, published in 2020. This is a highly praised fantasy novel, which is not usually my genre. Because it's been so heavily recommended by people that I listen to, including Brian, I may try to get it in for a 2022 read. After watching and reading reviews, I'm still not clear what to expect from it or how I should summarize it, other than that Piranesi is some sort of a labyrinth or puzzle with winding corridors that needs to be figured out, and there's perhaps a twist at the end. I'm told that it's not what I expect, and I don't know what to expect, so we're going to see what happens. And again, this was given to me by Brian as one of my Christmas presents. It's really great when you have friends who know you so well to send you books. And I know a lot of people know that I have this channel and friends know it, but still, it's not always that obvious what you should get somebody who reads, especially with the amount of science fiction that I read. You can probably guess I have most of those books up on my shelf. So he finds a way to find things that I wouldn't necessarily pick for myself, but that I'm probably going to end up reading and probably going to end up liking. Let's not get carried away, drifting away from science fiction. The next one, back to science fiction, The Thing Itself by Adam Roberts. The thing in itself is a concept that was introduced by Immanuel Kant, and it means basically that things are what they are regardless of any observations of said thing. And I feel pretty sure it's part of the inspiration for this 2015 science fiction novel. I'm weary of its 3.5 rating on Goodreads, but I'm still curious about this. The summary I've pulled up reads, Adam Roberts turns his attention to answering the Fermi paradox with a taut and claustrophobic tale that echoes John Carpenter's The Thing. Two men, while away days in an Antarctic research station, tensions between them build as they argue over a love letter one of them has received. One is practical and open, the other surly, superior, and obsessed with reading one book by the philosopher Kant. As a storm brews and they lose contact with the outside world, they debate Kant, reality, and the emptiness of the universe. They come to hate each other, and they learn that they are not alone. Now, this one was interesting. This wasn't on my radar at all, but I am in a bunch of science fiction book clubs and Facebook groups and things like that. And in the science fiction book club that I am in on Facebook, there is somebody who gives rave reviews about a lot of books, and this is one that, like, he just gave a really glowing review, and I thought, you know what, if you're going to give that much of a glowing review to this book, I'm going to check it out. So a few other people commented on it, and they said how great it was as well, and I'm thinking, how have I never heard of this book? So I ordered it. I almost picked it up earlier after I got it and I finished one of my earlier reads this year. I'm like, oh, good, now I'm going to read this. And then I looked at it and I said, I'm not going to do it just yet because there were some other things I wanted to get to. So it's going to be one of those that, like, I think I'm going to get it in this year. we'll just have to wait and see. I feel like I want to do a little more research on it too and see what else other people are saying about it to see if I want to put it on my reading list sooner rather than later. This next book, I'm going to hold it up a little bit longer because I mentioned it in a January video, my 2022 goals, and I was using the green screen, so you can imagine that didn't go so well for this one. This is Zendagi by Greg Egan, published in 2010. In that 2022 Reading Goals episode from January, I mentioned that I'm aiming to read 2 books each from my favorite 7 authors. Greg Egan is one of those authors, and I picked up a copy of Zendagi as an effort to make that happen. 3 of my other favorites that are present in this haul are books from Delaney, Okorafor, and as already mentioned, Stevenson. I like that this one is set in Iran near future, and it has a large focus on brain mapping. Iran is not your typical sci-fi setting, and I love science fiction that goes to different places on Earth, not just out among the cosmos. As with every Egan novel, this is hard science fiction and a heck of a ride. Here we go with Nnedi Okorafor. This is her new release, Noor. This was published last year, 2021. Continuing with underrepresented settings in science fiction, Noor, the new release from Okorafor, takes place in Nigeria. This is a familiar setting for Okorafor to stage a story. Her novel Lagoon, also set in Nigeria, is one that you can find a review for on my channel. In this story, AO starts off wrong when she's born and further affected by a car accident while very young. This results in her body being transformed through implants and major augmentations. She's considered freakish. There's a race across the desert and against time, and in the age of online streaming, everyone is watching the fast-paced saga. So this one's on the reading list, and it's part of my haul. I picked it up because it's a new release, and I try to read everything by Nnedi Okorafor. She's one of my favorite authors, and again, this falls into the goal of trying to read at least 2 from each of my 7 favorite authors. I think Noor will be one of those, and probably a reread of Who Fears Death is going to be the other Okorafor that I read. That doesn't mean that's actually going to be what happens. I might put this off till next year, but I think I'm going to get to this one since it is a new release, and I do want to try to get more new releases into my reading schedule this year. Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon, published in 1973. Rainbow is historical fiction, science fiction, set mostly in Europe during World War II. The focus is on a mission that a number of characters undertake to uncover the secret of a special weapon or device. I want to work this into the TBR this year as I've never read it before, and I'm really curious if, given its reputation, it's one that would be on my next top 150 or top 100 science fiction reads list. Speaking of that reputation, Wikipedia boasts Time named Gravity's Rainbow one of its all-time 100 greatest novels, a list of the best English language novels from 1923 to 2005, and it's considered by many critics to be one of the greatest American novels ever written. I'm pretty likely to get to this in 2022 because it does appear to be an obvious gap in my science fiction reading. I knew that when I did my top 150 science fiction reads last year, so I've been itching to get this onto the reading schedule. It's probably going to get there. Again, a little bit of a chunker. Let's see. Oh yeah, definitely a chunker, at least 700 pages. Wow, and the writing's pretty small too. I think we'll get to it. I do love chunkers, but sometimes when I'm trying to record and get videos down, the chunkers can take up a lot of my time. This next one maybe shouldn't be in my haul because I already had it and I didn't realize it, but I did want to read this year, so I ordered Nova and didn't know I already had Nova, so now I have Nova ×2. Written by the incomparable Samuel R. Delany and published in 1968. Delany, as mentioned earlier, is one of my favorite authors, like Okorafor, like Egan. I just can't get enough of his writing. You can see a review of his excellent Babel 17 on my channel. That thumbnail looks like this, so let's get some room in here for editing. I always forget to put room there. Just like Babel 17, I think you would be safe calling this either cyberpunk or pre or pseudo-cyberpunk. In Nova, the setting is far future. It has mysticism and the psychedelic, interesting character introductions, deep dives into the philosophic, and traveling through an exploding supernova. So, like I said, I've got 2 copies of this. I'm only going to read one of them. And again, this falls into my goals of trying to get at least 2 reads by each of my favorite 7 novels, favorite 7 authors, Delaney being one of those. It's pretty likely that Nova's going to be one of those reads this year. I may reread Dahlgren for a 3rd time, or I might read Stars in My Pocket like Grains of Sand, and I'm looking around because I know I just had that out somewhere, but I don't see it, so let's move on. Last but not least, maybe least in terms of size, Where the Late Sweet Bird Sang by Kate Wilhelm. This is a Nebula winner, published in 1976. I'm kind of a sucker for stuff that's in my backyard, movies, books, etc. Living in the DMV, District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia, I've gone tubing on the Shenandoah River enough times to do a double take when I saw that this novel was a post-apocalyptic science fiction book set in Virginia, around the Shenandoah River. Global pandemics and environmental changes all bring this even closer to home. I'm curious to see what happens in this story where the death toll rises and advances in cloning tech supplant sexual reproduction. Thank you for watching today. I'm Michael Leverts. This is Fit to Be Read. Please like, please subscribe, please click the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know every Thursday at 1 o'clock when I release new content. Thank you.